right, we're going to go ahead and get started. It looks like we still have some people jumping into the group, but nevertheless, we're starting just a little bit late, so we'll go ahead and get started with the program. First of all, if everyone could mute yourselves, we want to make sure everyone's muted to eliminate background noise. You have joined us now for Lunch with Eaters. We are very excited to have you this Friday afternoon. I'm Jeff Menhaus. I'm Executive Director for Alumni Relations at the UCI Alumni Association. Thrilled that you could join us. This is our 12th installment of the Lunch with Eaters series, and we have an amazing alumnus speaker for you today to make this a very special 12th installment. This program is a monthly virtual lunch and learn program built specifically for you, the UCI alumni and friends community. So glad you found us. A couple quick things. We have some resources for you that I want to make sure you know about. Lots of virtual events like this one are going on. We're doing about 4 or 5 of them every week with a wide variety of topics that you might be interested in. Our events calendar is all on our website. We have an amazing Anteaters Go virtual website that has that event calendar, but also so much more. Ways that you can get involved in a more meaningful way as a volunteer or as a mentor to students or younger alumni through our Anteater Network platform, which is all about mentorship and very, very well received by the 7,500 Anteaters who are on it right now. We also have downloadable content for you and your family to take part in, express your creative outlets, and more. So thank you for staying engaged with UCI virtually. We have more than ever when it comes to chapter programming and whatnot. So I'd like to thank, before we begin, the Henry Samueli School of Engineering, our amazing Henry Samueli School of Engineering at UCI. Our guest speaker is involved with the school and a graduate of the school, and they've been fantastic partners in bringing Nick to the event. So while everyone is muted, I want to let you know that we do want to hear from you. So use the chat function to talk amongst each other, get a conversation going, and then we will have a Q&A session for the last 15 minutes of this hour. So please put in your questions throughout the event in the Q&A, and then we'll moderate it, get to as many of those questions as we can in the last 15 minutes. So if Nick says something that pokes a question in your mind, just go ahead and put it in the Q&A right away, and then we'll circle back to it, okay? So without further ado, I'd like to introduce our wonderful speaker, Mr. Nick Desai. Nick is an accomplished entrepreneur who has started and led 4 venture-funded startups over the last 18 years. Nick is the co-founder and CEO of Heal, an on-demand doctor house call app. For Nick, Heal is more than a company. It's a mission to fix the broken $4 trillion healthcare system. With over 250,000 appointments already delivered, Heal has proven safe, easy, and timely access to quality care is entirely possible. Nick earned his bachelor's degree in electrical and computer engineering from UCI, where he is an esteemed member of the Engineering Hall of Fame. And he earned his master's in electrical engineering from UCLA. We're proud that Nick served on the board of the UCI Alumni Association and the Los Angeles chapter of the American Heart Association. Now, Nick, please come online with your video and audio, and everyone in the audience, let's please give Nick a virtual big Anteater welcome. Virtual applause, yay.
Yeah. Virtual, yay.
Hi, Nick, how are you doing?
Very good, how are you?
Fantastic, thank you. So I'm gonna get the program going, just a few kind of quick questions to kind of get things started. You are a UCI alumnus. Perhaps you can start by sharing your favorite 1 or 2 UCI memories.
I mean, there's a lot of great UCI memories, and I'm going to date myself by sharing a couple of these because some of these buildings don't even exist anymore. But back when I went to school, and just to put that as a frame of reference, this was 1987, 88. through 1990. When I went to school, they across the main library was Gateway Commons, and Gateway Commons was a cafeteria. In fact, I think it was like the only cafeteria on campus, if I remember correctly back then. And they used to make these gigantic burritos for like, it was like $2 for the biggest burrito you've ever eaten. And we used to go there and eat burritos after signal processing class, and then veg out on the lawn in Old Ridge Park. I would say another one was engineering week, right? That was a great time as an engineer, and all the fun stuff we did, and the little contests and Rube Goldbergs and things. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I remember E-Week being broadcast all over campus. That was fun, even though I wasn't an engineer. So you had a good experience at UCI. What made you decide to be involved as an alumnus and continue to be involved with UCI?
Look, I think UC Irvine is an incredible university. Even though the rankings are, whatever, top 8 public university, top 7, whatever it is, and that, best American university under 50 a few years ago, and whatever all these things are, and they're all great, and I see more and more of them. I think UC Irvine's better than that, and it was the perfect place for me because it allowed me to not only get an extremely high quality education for then or now what is virtually no money, right, relative to how much private universities cost. But it also, allowed me to explore so many areas of interest, right? I took philosophy classes because I found them interesting, and I took screenwriting classes because I found them interesting, and I joined clubs, and I discovered my love for leadership, and I'm a CEO of a company today, so that sort of stuck. And I made friends, lifelong friends that I still have. One of whom's on this call. Another alumnus member, Sitara, who was also an engineer, but much younger than me. She made me give her a shout out. So just so you know, but it was a phenomenal experience, and I grew as a person, and I learned so much, and I just wanted to be able to give back to the university, and whether it's in scholarships or donations or being involved in the alumni organization or events like this one. I've come and speak at the MBA program, the engineering school, this lunch event, different things. They're a lot of fun, and I enjoy doing them, but I hope I can provide some value to the students who are there now or more recent graduates in figuring out their career and life choices.
Well, Nick, I have to first say that the university appreciates everything that you do. You give back in so many ways, and you're a model of how other alumni can do the same thing. Now, moving forward, you mentioned some of the things you learned and you developed your leadership at UCI. Perhaps that's a natural segue. What drew you into startups?
It's a funny question. When I grew up, my father had his own business. My grandfather had his own business. My uncle had his own business. And they were all engineers who then went and started companies, and big, small, whatever. And so it was really in high school when I started making friends and you started asking, what does your dad do? Or what does your mom do? Or whatever, that I actually discovered that having a job was even an option, right? Like I'm not even kidding. I just thought you go to school and you become an engineer and then you start your own business. But to me, it was always what I wanted to do. My earliest memories gravitate towards wanting to be in charge of something, wanting to make something, right? And that's part of why I studied electrical engineering, because the thought process, the discipline of being an engineer is the ability to logically solve problems and synthesize data across different dimensions, and then deliver those solutions to real people, right? And nowadays, any company you're in, I've obviously started technology-oriented companies, but any company is a tech company, right? So having a background in STEM that allows me to understand the language of the world of today and tomorrow, and design and create solutions, that is that much more meaningful. But this is what I've always wanted to do, right? I can't think of anything else that I've ever wanted to do.
Well, you are an engineer, and you mentioned all companies are tech companies, but then how did you become interested or wind up where you are now in the healthcare industry?
It's an interesting and long and winding road, but 13 years ago, I met my now wife, Renee. Renee is also a UC grad, though UC San Diego and UCLA were her two schools. But she is a physician, and she and I went on the process of trying to have children. And long story short, it was that process and trying to take our own very little kids to the doctors that got us to realize one day a light went off that we should use technology to make healthcare more accessible, more available, more convenient, more timely, more affordable to every American, right? If technology can reduce the friction of getting food to my house or watching a video or watching getting getting stuff to my house or finding someone to date, should, certainly it should be applied to the most universal need in humankind, which is that we're all going to need healthcare.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for sharing that. Now, I want to get a little information from the audience here before we transition into the next part of this. So we're going to pop up a poll question right now. How many of you are actively interested in starting your own company? And here we go. So yes or no. You know, not everyone thinks about doing this. Obviously, it was in Nick's history, but we'll take about 5 more seconds to finish this, and then we'll see the results. Okay, let's go ahead and close that poll, and we'll pop up the results. So 67% of you, 2/3, are actively interested in starting your own company, and 1/3 are not. So that's interesting background information as we move forward. Nick, I will now turn it over to you to give background on HEAL and advice for anteater entrepreneurs.
Yeah. So look, I'll keep the HEAL part of this brief because knowing that 2/3 of this audience has thought about starting their own company, it's great to hear. It's just phenomenal to hear, right? And there's no, I don't know exactly who's on this call, but it's no accident that this is a group of people that is excited about being entrepreneurs, or a majority of them anyways. UC Irvine also has I think it's the highest number. Jeff, you can tell me better than I can, but it's the most immigrants or most first generation, first in their family to go to college or something like that,
Yeah,
right?
we have about 50% of our student population are first generation in their family to go to college. And then we've been recognized for several years by the New York Times as doing the most for the American dream.
Yeah. Well, look, the American dream is entrepreneurship, right? I don't know if you watched the presidential debate last night, right? And I won't talk politics other than all they talk about is small business people, small business people. We're small business people, right? And there's a huge overlap between people who go to college for the first time, immigrants, who also, a lot of Orange County is first and second generation immigrants, Southern California and California are people who are likely to start businesses. So it's not surprising to hear. And I love talking about this, so I'll talk more about that. HEAL, what we do, my wife and I started this company 6 years ago. And what we do is do doctor house calls. It's an app like Uber, and you can hit a button, and any of you on this call, as long as you're in our service areas, which if you're in California and Southern California, you are for sure, can hit a button, enter your insurance information, have a doctor, a board certified licensed medical doctor, come to your home, your office, your workplace, your living facility where your parents live, and deliver high quality, private, highly personal and highly effective primary, preventative, and urgent healthcare. It's covered by about 25 major insurance plans. And we're 6 years in. We've seen 250,000 people to date. We've raised about $200 million in total funding, most recently $100 million funding round from healthcare giant Humana. And we now employ, I think it's about 280 or 290 people, almost 300 people, with offices in San Diego, I'm sorry, here in LA, Santa Monica, where I'm sitting, Atlanta, Georgia, New York City. Those are all of our offices. So, but fundamentally, we're transforming healthcare by bringing primary care back to the primary residence. And the reason that that's important, the reason this is important to do, is not just everybody hates going to the damn doctor's office, and nobody, especially now with COVID, everyone's aware of germs, and people are like, I don't want to be exposed myself to other people's germs, and whatever the case may be. But you should never want to go to the doctor's office. There's always other people's germs, right? But it's also not, it's not just about that or the convenience. It's the fact that, and I always give this analogy, you know, when you order food from Grubhub or Seamless or whichever it is, I think they're the same thing now, right? You get restaurant food to your house. You don't have to go pick it up, and you don't have to eat in the restaurant, whatever. And that's good. But the food's in cardboard boxes. It's always a little cold. Sometimes they mess up your order. You still have to do the dishes, right? You know, it's still your house. It's still not a full restaurant experience, right? When you get a TV from Amazon to come to your house, it's exactly the same. It's not a better TV because it came to your house. It's just more convenient. So in the case of Grubhub, it's not quite the same experience, but it's pretty good. In the case of Amazon, it's the exact same thing. The TV shows up at my doorstep. Same TV, doesn't make the TV better or worse, right? In the case of Heal, healthcare is actually better when it's delivered at home, because 80% of health outcomes are determined by what is called social determinants of health, the things that doctors can only see in your house. Drug and alcohol abuse, smoking, vaping, weed, falling down the stairs, fall risk. Yeah, a lot of people on this call may be younger and you're not thinking about fall risk, but think about your parents and grandparents, right? Food insecurity, right? It's sad to say this, but 1 in 3 Americans have trouble putting food on the table consistently, right? That's what food insecurity means. It means that they go to a doctor's office and the doctor says, take this medication with milk, and they're too embarrassed to say, and they shouldn't be embarrassed. The country should be embarrassed, but that's neither here nor there. To say, I can't afford milk. I don't know how am I going to buy milk, right? They're too embarrassed to say. Or language barriers, right? How many people go into a doctor's office and they don't speak English well, right? Because they're ethnic, they're from Latin America or from Asia or from Middle East or from anywhere else, right? When we can overcome these barriers and put people at their most comfortable place and see their social determinants, we can have a tremendously positive impact on lowering overall healthcare costs and improving their health outcomes. And that's fundamentally what we're doing, right? And the important thing to remember in healthcare is that the only way to lower healthcare costs is to improve health outcomes. And I always say this because it always fascinates me. Every debate, every presidential debate is about healthcare, right? Who's going to pay for your coverage? But that's the wrong question, because while healthcare is a human right, just because somebody is paying for your coverage doesn't mean you have access to a doctor. Go out from UC Irvine, find somebody who's on Medi-Cal. It will take you, on an average, you'll have to ask 3 people, do you have insurance? Do you have insurance? And the 4th person will say, I'm on Medi-Cal, okay? Many of them work on the campus at UC Irvine, and they're gonna tell you, hey, I have Medi-Cal. Oh, how, have you seen a doctor? No, no doctor will take my insurance, right? Access is not the same thing as coverage. And ultimately, we're all paying for healthcare. I don't care if it's single payer, private insurance, public insurance, it doesn't matter. The reality is we're all paying for healthcare because the emergency rooms don't turn people away. And while that is the case, the best way to lower healthcare costs is to improve outcomes. If we wait till someone is a diabetic hypertensive that has a heart attack, that costs way more money than getting them to lose some weight, right? And it costs way more money to take care of somebody who has COVID than it does to wear a mask, right? These Donald Trump yesterday, and again, you can probably tell my political bent here, but yesterday talked about the therapeutic he got, right? One of the therapeutic he got is a monoclonal antibody by a company called Regeneron that is A, not publicly available, and B, it costs $1.5 million a dose, right? Cool. He's the president. He got it. I'm glad his life is saved, right? But the reality is we can't all afford that. So what should we do? We should deliver primary and preventive care that keeps people out of the hospital, that keeps people off medications, that looks at mental and behavioral health, right? And addresses those things as a critical part of an effective, comprehensive, proactive care plan so that people spend more time being well and less time getting well. That's HEAL.
Yeah, that provides a lot of great context. And what separates HEAL from, I suppose, the marketplace or the healthcare industry, which is obviously a massive issue, a massive problem, as you say. Now, maybe relating this a little bit to how you came about it, how you got the idea and transformed it to reality. When you noticed, you mentioned your experience with your wife. When you noticed a gap in the marketplace, maybe you could call this that, maybe you could call that something else. And then you had the idea to solve the problem, and you're a doer, you're a leader, so you went ahead and did it. But maybe you could break it down in simpler ways that people can do that, because you hear people all the time who have ideas, something that might make it in the marketplace or something they think should be on Shark Tank or something like that. How do you kind of systematically, or what's your thought process from taking an idea like that to making it a reality?
Yeah. So look, here's the thing I'll say. The single most important limiting reagent to people being successful entrepreneurs is you yourself. People will limit themselves. People won't like this. Oh, they'll laugh at me. Oh, it won't get good. Oh, it won't. One of the best examples I can give of a company that went on Shark Tank, Ring, right? The doorbell, the video doorbell gizmo thing. UC Irvine alumni Satara still works there now and won't come to work for me at HEAL, but that's a separate and personal issue I'll take care of later. But my point is, he was rejected. He didn't get a deal from Shark Tank. He sold his company to Amazon for what, $1 billion, right? He's made a tremendous amount of money. And I'm not bashing Shark Tank. I'm saying you're going to hear no, right? No is going to happen. So what? People don't spit on you. They don't hit you. They just say no. They laugh at your idea. That'll never work. You know what? Everyone's going to say no because most people are afraid to try it, right? Most people are afraid to try it. They just won't do it. They'll limit themselves, right? Say what you want, and I can say plenty, and I have, right, about Donald Trump on this call. Say what you want. He came down that escalator and he said he was going to run for president. He said he was going to win, and he did. No matter what else happens, he did do that, right? He didn't stop himself from doing it. He went for it. Okay, you have to go for it. The most important thing from taking your idea to a business is to actually do it. I can't stress this enough. There's no amount of analysis. There's no sure path. If you want a sure path, become an engineer, become a doctor, become a whatever, get a degree from UC Irvine, from the law school to business school to this school to that school, nursing school, whatever. Go get a job, right? You're gonna have a job forever. Great, good for you. But if you want to start something, you have to be able to take rejection. Okay, before Humana invested $100 million in HEAL, 40 different investors that were less qualified to invest in HEAL, if we would have gotten their money, we were worse off than getting Humana's money, said no. 40 different investors over the course of a year. So what? I'm not dead. Nobody hates me because of it. Results matter, right? So the most important piece of advice I can give is don't limit yourself, don't be afraid of rejection, and don't think you can't change the world. There's a phrase, the only thing that, why is it that you believe a small group of determined people can change the world? And the answer is because it's the only thing that ever has, right? You're that person, right? What's the difference between you and Jeff Bezos, or you and Larry Ellison, or you and Bill Gates, or you and the Spanx lady, or you and whoever, right? There's no difference. The difference is you deciding you want to be that person.
Well, so the difference is you. That is the key, right? But for some people, 66% of our audience who are interested in making a startup, in creating their own thing, whether it's on the side or they are entrepreneurs already. How do you, and maybe this is a little more specific and different from you. I mean, you've gone through 4 startup ventures, it sounds
Right.
like. How do you start the process of creating a company? I mean, you had this idea and then you went to 41 investors before you got your huge round of funding. How do you do that if you have something you think will work as a passion? You have that drive, you think you are that person who can make the change. What do you do?
Well, look, so I think there's a couple of different things, right? The first point to make is, when I'm 50 years old now, I started this company when I was 44 years old. It's my fourth one. I've done it before. So obviously I've learned some things along the way, right? And I'll talk about those in a second. I'll talk about how it's great and easy to get started right now. And the best companies are started in the worst economic circumstances in general. But I want to tell a story first because it's important. When I started my first company, I had finished my undergrad at UC Irvine, then went to UCLA for grad school. And while I was in grad school, I was recruited to go work at Rockwell Science Center, right? So this was in Thousand Oaks, California. This is a place they built the 1.1 gigahertz receiver chips for commercial GPS, right? The CEO of Rockwell Science Center is actually an active UC Irvine alumni, a guy named Jay Haiku, who's involved in the recruiting of the new dean for the School of Engineering, which I'm involved in as well, as it turns out. But in any case, I went to work there. And back in 1990, and I'm not sharing this to show off, I'm sharing this to make a point. Back in 1992, if you can think to the economy, that's 28 years ago, right? I was making just over $100,000 a year, right? Working in this job at this research facility. I had no expenses. My parents had bought me my car. Life was like, that's a lot of freaking money back then, right? And I had to make the decision, and my parents were very instrumental in this, credit to them, but I had to make a decision to quit my damn job, right? Quit that very cushy salary and easy lifestyle to say, I'm going to go start. And I didn't even have an idea at the time. I didn't have a particular, I'm going to go start this thing. But my parents kept reminding me that if you get comfortable, you'll never start, because comfort is the opposite. Security is the opposite of entrepreneurship, right? You have to be uncomfortable. You're going to graduate, or many of you have graduated from UC Irvine with undergrad or grad school. You can get a great job. You can get a job that pays good money, right? That job, then you'll buy an apartment, then you'll have a mortgage, then you'll have a this, and you'll have a that. Then all of a sudden you can't start anything, right? It's not to say entrepreneurs don't start later in life. Some of them do, but it is to say that very often companies are started by people when they're very young because they have nothing to lose. So that's one thing that I want to say. Now, in terms of getting started, right? When I started my first company, and I don't want to make this a story about back in the old days, I used to walk uphill in the snow both ways, that whole thing that we've all heard from our parents, right? I don't want to make this about that, but I will just say that it is much easier now because the whole world has come to understand at the government level, at the university level, at the societal level, that the job creators and the most important people in the function of an economy to solve humanity's problems and to create employment and to solve climate change and whatever are entrepreneurs. People are going to start something, right? You have the internet now, right? You have LinkedIn, you have Facebook, you have groups like this one. I don't know, Jeff, I think UC Irvine has an incubator or startup accelerator or something on campus, right?
Yeah, I'd be happy to give that a quick mention. The UCI Beal Applied Innovation ecosystem did not exist when you were a student. It started about 6 years ago, and it is a world-class, and I mean world-class, entrepreneurialism center, incubator, We have investors in-house, experts and residents in-house on campus, wonderful facilities, as well as the entrepreneurial network and more. Almost 3,000 visitors to that building a month, unique visitors before the pandemic. So it is a very robust community as a hub of Orange County entrepreneurialism, which all Anteaters can take part in, students or alumni. So you have a leg up now. Nick did not have that resource in the 90s. Everyone nowadays does at UC.
Right. And that, to me, that's fantastic. Like, I can't, and I'll tell you what, you know what, if you don't live near UC Irvine, you know where a great incubator or accelerator to get some free workspace and have internet access and start your company is? The lobby of every hotel in America. Just Starbucks. Okay. Go, you know where I started this company? You know where day one was? And each of my, since the internet's been around, it was a laptop, me, and a Starbucks, right? Because, hey, there's free Wi-Fi. You can sit there. You can interview people there, right? Nobody cares about where you are anymore. There's Zoom. There's, look at this. There's, well, how many, whatever, few dozen people on this thing connecting with each other. You can pitch investors remotely. You don't have to have a travel budget. You don't have to have this or that. So the first thing you have to do to be an entrepreneur is to be resourceful, right? But if you are resourceful, the number of resources that are available to you are virtually limitless, right? Yes, you have to have a compelling idea. Yes, you have to have an incredible work ethic, and I'm going to come back to work ethic in a second. But if you have an incredible work ethic, and if you have an idea, and if you have stick-to-itiveness, and if you're not afraid of failure, the resources are there, right? People are rooting for you to succeed, right? The place you went to school is rooting for you to succeed. The city you live in, the state government, the federal government, everyone's rooting for you to succeed because you're the future of job creation. You're the future of problem solving, right? The thing I want to say about work ethic is this, right? And I'm not, I'm not here to tell anyone how to live their life, but I'm here to tell you this. There's a lot of talk nowadays about 4-day work weeks and 32-hour work week and more work-life balance, and it's all great. That's cool. That's not being an entrepreneur who's going to succeed, okay? I'm still the first cat in the office, and I'm still the last one to leave, okay? 6 years in, at the age of 50, that's reality. I work 6 days a week. I take Saturdays off to spend time with my kids. That, when you are building your company and succeeding, you know how you know you're going to succeed? It's when you're working and nobody else is. It's not when you're working and everybody else is. It's when you're working and nobody else is. And if you're not willing to do that, this isn't for you, okay? Because there is somebody in Irvine or in LA or in Delaware and definitely in China and in India that is working harder than you, working more hours than you, is more comfortable being uncomfortable than you, right? Because we all have first world privilege just by virtue of being here, right? You have to beat those people. And the only way you're going to do it is working harder.
Yeah. You've been dropping lots of knowledge and good kind of advice that I'm compiling. So I'm going to go through all that at the end, just to recap a lot of these really important lessons for entrepreneurs. In the meantime, though, I want to take the liberty to remind the audience to submit questions. We're going to come to questions in about 5 minutes, I would think. So please submit questions. We'll be able to answer those with Nick momentarily. Now, Nick, you mentioned, you kind of touched quickly on networking, and I mentioned the ecosystem we have at UCI. You mentioned LinkedIn. LinkedIn is an incredibly powerful tool to network if you do it the right way. We have a UCI, well, anyone can search UCI alumni in a certain industry, certain field, certain region, certain school, where you graduated from within UCI, and reach out to folks. And we have found more often than not, they're willing to reciprocate and kind of come take a meeting, reach back out to you. And we have the Anteater Network, the mentorship platform I mentioned. Nick, how would you advise the audience to best network or take advantage of that when starting a company?
Look, here's what I'll say, right? If you want to be an entrepreneur, you can't be shy, right? You can't be afraid to go and talk to people, to send the cold email, to approach somebody on LinkedIn that you don't know. Right? You have to overcome that pathological shyness that a lot of us have, right? That fear of rejection. But once you do that, you have to find the best way for you, right? I'm not a particular fan of LinkedIn, right? Mostly, I mean, maybe it's because at this point in my life, I'm getting bombarded by people who want stuff from me on LinkedIn, but there's very few people I can't just email. And maybe that's a privileged position I'm in, but I'm not a particular fan of LinkedIn or quote unquote networking for the sake of networking. What I am a fan of is having a mission, asking a specific question, right? When you go to somebody and you say, oh, right, here, let me give you two examples, right? You find somebody and you're like, oh, hey, I saw you went to UC Irvine and you're an entrepreneur and I want to start a company one day and I just want to learn from you, right? Okay, maybe I'll respond, maybe I won't. I get those emails all the time, right? Or UCLA, or I live in Irvine, or I'm Indian, or whatever the case may be, right? They try to find some connection. Hey, I would love to just grab a coffee, whatever, right? And I sit there and think to myself, okay, whatever. Then I get people who write me and say, I have this idea, I want to do this. And what I would love from you is 10 minutes to help me with the financial model section of my business plan, or 10 minutes to give me feedback on how I can approach venture capital people. There's a concrete request. There's something I can say yes to. In fact, they go the step further. The smartest people go the step further. I still do this to this day. You want to make it easy for people to say yes. Don't send an email saying, hey, I would love to meet you whenever you have time, right? Thinking they're the busy person you know what they're going to do? They're going to say, okay, I'm going to put this in I'll get back to it when I have time box. I'd love to meet you next Tuesday at 9 a.m. for 20 minutes. Please let me know if that works for you and what the best number. Great. All they have to do is say yes, right? And put it in the thing, and I will send you a calendar invite with the contact information. Great. All they have to do is say yes, and then they're done. And it's almost easier to say yes than say no at that point, right? So I believe that networking works best when you have a very specific ask. You're not afraid to make the ask, and you make it easy for the other person to say yes because they are busy, right? Respecting them is not just giving them an open-ended question to sit with. I want to sit with coffee and have a conversation. I have 3 young kids at home. If I'm not doing this, I'm with them, right? So my point in that conversation, my point is people do almost exactly what's wrong, what exactly the opposite of what they should do, because they think, oh, I don't want to email the highest level person at the company. I'll go in from the bottom up. Oh, I'll just be very polite and say, whenever works for you. Whenever works for you is code for you go on your calendar and you figure out a time that works, right? They're the busy person. Give them a time, right? If they do want to meet with you, they won't say no because that time doesn't work. They'll just say, oh, what about this time? Because they feel like they owe you an answer. It's a serve and volley approach, right? You want to get them engaged in a dialogue. And the higher up you aim, the more likely you're going to go higher up, because it's not like people aren't going to say no because they're not higher up. But most people who've achieved something in their life, right? Most people who've achieved something in their life are aware that people help them on the way up, right? In fact, one of the biggest problems in our political arena and our country is people who assume that they didn't, when Barack Obama said, I think it was back in 2014, is if you built a company, you didn't do that. And he was widely misquoted. What he was saying is that people helped you, your teacher, your community organization, your parent, your uncle, your bank, your this, your that, whatever, right? I am extremely proud of the fact that a lot of very smart people have helped me along the way, including the places I went to school, right? Most people are aware of that and they will help if you make it easy for them. The other thing I'll say about networking, and the last thing I'll say, is nobody wants to read your essay or your mom and dad met at a church picnic, your life story, okay? People think, I'm sending one email, I'm gonna get one shot, so I'm gonna put every goddamn thing in that email, right? People read emails on these things, on your iPhone. You wanna make it so that it's within one screen, they don't have to scroll and they can say yes or no.
Well, that's wonderful tactical advice, Nick. Thank you for that. Now, I want to get into some questions from the audience, but first, there are so many bits of good advice here that I'm going to kind of regurgitate a little bit that you said, Nick. First, the most important reagent to entrepreneurialism is you yourself. I think that's very powerful. There's no sure path in entrepreneurialism. Now, to do it, you must be able to be resourceful, know that the best companies are started under the worst economic circumstances, generally speaking. Get comfortable being uncomfortable. You said that multiple times. Security is the opposite of entrepreneurialism, which was interesting. You can't be shy. You have to learn how to take rejection. It's going to happen many dozens of times potentially before you might get lucky. You must have an incredible work ethic. You'll know that when you're working and nobody else is. That's when you're on the path to success. Networking works best when you have a very specific ask and you make it easy for them. And then finally, and potentially most powerfully, don't think you can't change the world yourself. So, Nick, that's really, really good information. I'm going to turn to the audience now. Some questions for you. We have most of these questions seem to be about Heal, but we have one here that I'll start with from Claudia White. Hi, Claudia. Claudia is a former alumni board member as well. And Claudia asks, how do you live, quote unquote, while waiting to get your first paycheck from your first business?
Yeah. So look, Claudia, hello again, by the way. We were on the alumni board together, actually, I remember. Look, the answer to that question is, and I will say this, with a lot of humility, but I grew up with a lot of privilege, right? My parent, first of all, I had a great job. I had great summer internships that paid well. I went to grad school on a fellowship, as in, when you're grad school in engineering, you can do research and make money for that. I worked part-time. So I also worked very hard, but I also had privilege. And I moved back in with my parents, which back then, by the way, I want to say, when I was 24 and moved back home with my parents, it was like the dorkiest ass thing to do. Like, girls wouldn't date you because you lived with your parents, right? Now it's like half of all kids between 25 and 30 live with their parents or something. It's like totally cool to do that, right? So whether it's living with your parents, bumming couch space off a friend, right? Having a side job, make your entrepreneurship your main gig, but have a side, hell, drive Uber, right? If you have to, right? There's also these gig economy jobs available, right? Drive Uber, deliver Grubhub, do whatever it is that you need to do to keep your expenses to a minimum. I'm going to tell you a story. After I moved out from my parents' place, after I had built my first company and I had made some money, but not Jeff Bezos money. Okay, I'll grant you that. But when
Are
I
you
started my
there
second,
yet? Jeff Bezos money?
not quite that. You know what? Frankly, I got to say as an aside, the appeal to being an entrepreneur to me has never been about the money. It's about changing the world, right? I live a comfortable life,
Yeah.
and I yes, money is a measure of success, but I think one of the problems with society as it is now is that some of the people who are wealthy are so grotesquely wealthy and so unsharing of their wealth in ways that can help humanity that it makes people hate wealth and success, right? You can be worth $100 billion and eradicate polio from the world like Bill Gates did, or you can do it and do whatever Jeff Bezos is doing, which I think is less relevant or valuable. But anyways, that's an aside. But my point is, when I was 27 years old, I moved into my brother's apartment, and it was a 2-bedroom apartment with him and his apartment mate. I slept on the floor in the living room for 3 years while building a company that my brother worked at. As in, my brother worked for me while I was sleeping on his floor. And I took an old car from my parents. So my total fixed living expenses were my food, which is like $500, $400 or $500 a month, right? So I think you have to be willing to beg, borrow, steal, and be resourceful, right? And find a way to do something that keeps you going, so that but you're going to have to be willing to disrupt your lifestyle. And you can't say, I'm accustomed to this lifestyle and I want to live this way. I just want to be alive and not starve to death.
Yeah, thank you, Nick. We have a couple questions on this subject, which you ever so briefly touched on. And I understand if you want to pass on this, feel free, because it's a little personal. But do you find that a shared passion with your business strengthens your marriage, or maybe vice versa?
It's a great question. And I don't, I mean, it's personal, but I don't mind answering it at all. My wife and I have a phenomenal, I'm very, very blessed. My wife is an incredible person, a very bright, accomplished physician, my business partner, the mother of our 3 children, and my life partner, right? And I'm not going to say that having a shared passion strengthens our marriage. It doesn't hurt our marriage either. And the reason is because what it does do at work, in this way, it does strengthen. At work, my business partner is someone who I can trust, who has my back, and who isn't trying to steal from me. Okay. Which can, and it's a weird thing because when we were first raising money, I can't tell you how many people said we don't invest in husband-wife team, right? The sexism of investors still is that then they look at her and they're like, so if we don't do that, Renee, what are you going to go do? As if she has to leave for us to get this company funded. I had a giant freaking middle finger for all those people, and so did Renee, right? And pardon my very crude language here, but that kind of sexism is not okay. But the point is, and at home it strengthens it because I know when she had a hard day, or she knows when I had our day. Tomorrow, we don't have a nanny on Saturdays. Tomorrow, Renee has to go do a filming thing for a press thing that we're doing, so I'll be with the kids. We can plan and schedule accordingly, right? It does help in that sense. But the critical thing that we've done very successfully is we debate passionately, disagree, argue at work, whatever, just as I would with any other senior person on the team. And we can walk in the door and we forget it, that we're not coworkers at that point, or we're not business partners. We're parents raising 3 monkeys, and then we become parents, and we don't bring it into the home with us. We don't bring it into the bedroom. We don't bring it into our life with our kids. We keep it completely Chinese walled.
Thank you, Nick, for answering that. And by the way, Judith Townsend submitted that question. Thank you very much, Judith. Now we have another question, a little more specific to Heal. Karen Jing asks, she's watched videos on how Heal doctors are driven to home appointments to maximize the time they're in vehicles, admin, telehealth. Are you trying to attract, how are you trying to attract and keep the most high quality, talented doctors? And what choice do patients have in selecting a doctor?
Great question. So the answer is, first of all, one of the 3 things we wrote down when we started Heal was you can't fix medicine for patients without fixing it for doctors first, right? UC Irvine has a great medical school. Some of you might be in it. Most of you will probably know someone who is in it or in the residency program at the hospital there, or there's still the one in Orange, right, Jeff? The main
yes.
UCI? Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
But and children's, right, which UC Irvine does a peds for. But people don't want to become primary care doctors anymore. It's a whole lot of school to make 200 grand a year, and 200 grand may sound like a lot of money, but you can graduate with UC Irvine with an undergrad in computer science, go work at Google, and you'll be making 200 grand in 3 years, and you'll be 6 years younger than someone who's still training to become a doctor, right? Doctors are stuck in the doctor of the hanging out the shingle and the private practice and the kindly old doctor, that the image is gone. 86% of primary care doctors in America work in large group practices. They have less flexibility on their schedule than a person who works at McDonald's. Okay. And they don't want to see 40 patients a day. They don't want to work 23 days a month. They don't want to be in debt. They don't want to feel crappy about it. If you go into family medicine, internal medicine, or pediatrics, it's not to make a lot of money. It is to feel good about the quality of patient medicine you practice. And we give doctors the dignity of being able to be doctors back. We let them we automated the business process of medicine. We give them a tablet-based EMR. We give them the time in the car. We pride ourselves not on how many patients a doctor sees in a day, but how few patients they see in the day, right? Our average doctor sees 8 patients a day in 12 hours. They work 16 days a month. They're driven from appointment to appointment. They go into a patient's home. They're welcomed with open arms, right? Imagine that you're sick on a Sunday, or your kids are sick on a Sunday, for those of you that have kids, and the doctor shows up 2 hours later to your door. You're going to be thrilled as shit, right? And that gives a doctor joy. And then they get to spend as much time as they need with you. So they walk out of the house feeling like they genuinely helped you, right? That's the goal. That's what we build. So we fix medicine for doctors, and that's why we attract and retain the best doctors.
Well, that's very insightful, Nick. Thank you so much. Now, we are at the end of our time. So I want to be respectful of Nick's time. Thank you, Nick, so much for sharing all your insights, not only on entrepreneurialism, of which there were many that I listed before, but all of your insights, but also on Heal. Thank you for going into the detail on this amazing company that you've built. And go ahead, Nick.
Thank you for everyone for attending. Thank you, Jeff, for having me, and Angelique and everyone else involved. To everyone on this call, I'm Nick at heal.com, NICK at heal.com. And if I can help you in any way, I will. And just remember, when you do start your company and you start hiring people, give a special look at people who went to UC Irvine. That's how we're going to build the place that USC is considered a great school now. USC is a freaking joke. What are you kidding me? Right? It's the University of Spoiled Children, but they have a great network because they hire their own. Right? Let's do that for our own graduates.
Yes, indeed. Let's do that, Nick. Thank you for sharing that message. And yes, we have a growing, burgeoning alumni community as UCI has become a world-class institution. So thank you for paying that forward, and your support of the university and involvement and opportunity. So once again, Nick Desai, thank you so much. A couple quick notes for the audience. Our next Lunch with Eaters event is going to be held on Friday, November 13th from noon to 1. So please bookmark that on your calendar. We are going to announce the topic and speaker for that one shortly, but not just yet, so stay tuned. If you do have any follow-up questions for us, feel free to email us at alumni@uci.edu, and we'll provide an answer as best we can. This webinar was recorded, and the recording will be provided to you in the thank you email that we send out probably in about a week from this event. So you can rewatch it, you can share it with your Anteater constituents, friends, fellow alumni, and more. Again, we're trying to bring all of the alumni and all of your networks back into the university. We have involvement opportunities. You can plug in right away as a mentor with an alumni chapter. Saw many friends on the in the participant list today. So hi Sitara, hi Claudia, everyone else who is participating today, thank you so much. We hope you'll join us again at the next Lunch with Eaters, and have a great rest of your Friday. Zot, zot, zot. Bye, everyone.